Welcome back to Natural One, the YouTube channel equivalent of getting socks for Christmas. Technically useful, but let's be honest, you were hoping for something way cooler. Today, we're finishing off our Fantastic Four series with Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman. She's calm, powerful, and somehow still has the energy to babysit Reed, Johnny, and Ben while saving the world. Let's slip into the Invisible Zone and figure out how to build Marvel's Force Field Queen in D&D 5e.
I won't let you hurt my family. I'm warning you, monster. Stay back.
Alright, before Sue Storm starts turning invisible and throwing force fields like it's her full-time job, which, let's be honest, it is, we've got to lock her into those nice little D&D 5e stat boxes. Let's get those numbers set before she disappears on us. We're starting off with a 15 in intelligence. Sue's not just the big sister of the group, she's Reed's closest scientific partner, running lab tests, solving cosmic anomalies, and pulling the team's collective bacon out of the fire when Johnny and Ben inevitably make things worse. She is a genius in her own right, and she's not about to let anyone forget it. Next up, a 14 in wisdom. You know that calm, centered vibe she has when everything's going wrong? That's high wisdom, baby. Sue reads the room, reads people, and reads the interdimensional threats about to stomp New York. Someone's got to keep the team from getting themselves killed, and it sure isn't Johnny. Then we've got a 13 in charisma. Sue's got the composure and presence to hold press conferences, negotiate with cosmic entities, and scold Johnny without raising her voice. She's not flashy, but when she talks, people listen. And when she tells Galactus to back off, he actually considers it. The 12 in dexterity follows. Sue's flipping around with invisibility and moving force fields with pinpoint control, so she's got to have solid coordination. She's not acrobatic like Johnny, but she's quick enough to step out of the way when Ben accidentally throws a car in her direction. A 10 in Constitution slots in next. Sue can take a hit if she needs to, but she's more about not getting hit in the first place. Her force fields do most of the heavy lifting here, letting her stay in the fight while avoiding the worst of the damage. Finally, we're dropping an 8 in strength. Look, Sue's strong in a holding the team together kind of way, not in a punching Dr. Doom through a wall way. That's Ben's job. She's got force fields for heavy lifting, so she's not sweating the gym max outs.
We'll do this the same way we always do. Together.
Sue Storm is a variant human because, well, she's the original powerhouse and team leader. You don't mess with perfection. We bump her intelligence to 16 because she's basically the backbone of the Fantastic Four, and her charisma to 14 since she commands respect without needing to yell. Gift of the Gym Dragon gives her a +1 to wisdom, making it a 15, to reflect that subtle supernatural edge that keeps her calm and collected in the heat of battle. Plus, it lets her push and pull as she wants. Stealth is an obvious extra skill. Being invisible is only so useful if you know how to sneak around like a pro. Her background? Faction agent, obviously. If by obviously I mean not obviously, and by faction agent I meant Fantastic Four member. But seriously, Sue's the diplomatic fixer who knows how to read a room, smooth tensions, and get what the team needs without starting a fight. Insight and persuasion round out her skill set, because she can see through the BS and talk her way out of trouble, whether that's with villains or her teammates when Johnny's being a pain.
No, it's not! I thought I was done waiting for Reed. But we're all in this together, Ben.
Kicking off Sue Storm's build at level 1 with a dive into Wizard. Because before she was making herself vanish and throwing up force fields, she was all about control and defense. Right out of the gate, she picks up some cantrips that scream utility and trickery. Blade Ward to shrug off damage, Mind Sliver to mess with enemy thoughts, and Minor Illusion because sometimes the best defense is just messing with your opponent's head. Her early spells lean heavily into protection and movement. Shield and Mage Armor keep her safe, Jump lets her float over trouble like in the comics, False Light gives her a little extra buffer, Featherfall saves her from deadly falls, and Magnify Gravity is her way of reminding people that physics still applies, even when she's invisible. With Arcane Recovery, she's got a magical recharge button for those long days of superheroing, and for skills, Medicine and Arcana make sure she knows what's going on inside and outside the battlefield. At level 2, Sue gains Arcane Ward, a literal magical force field that's basically her signature move made official. It soaks up damage before she even has to blink, letting her keep that poker face while others scramble. She also grabs some flavorful spells like Color Spray to dazzle and confuse enemies, and Absorb Elements so she can shrug off elemental attacks. Because of course the Invisible Woman isn't just about hiding, she's about enduring too. Level 3 sees Sue stepping deeper into her wizardly potential. She picks up Blur to make herself harder to hit, and Invisibility. Because what's an invisible woman without actual invisibility? Now, she can go full ghost mode, sneaking and striking or just disappearing to strategize from the shadows. At level 4, she sharpens her senses and defenses with the Observant feat, boosting her wisdom to 16, because keeping an eye on everything is what Sue does best. She picks up Gust as a cantrip, bringing subtle control over the environment, and gains access to Tensor's Disc and Misty Step. Whether she's flying on her own magical platform or teleporting out of harm's way, Sue's mobility and battlefield control are dialed up to 11. By level 5, Sue is the ultimate tactician, adding Pulse Wave for crowd control and Liamon's tiny hut for that impenetrable safe space she can retreat to when things get spicy. Now she's not just defending and disappearing, she's reshaping the battlefield and protecting her team with style. At 6th level, Sue's magic gets even more boss with Projected Ward, throwing a magical shield around her allies like it's just a casual Tuesday. She also learns Magic Circle to keep those pesky fiends at bay, and Counterspell to shut down enemy spells mid-cast, because nothing says not today like stopping a fireball in midair. By 7th level, Sue picks up Autoluke's Resilient Sphere, basically a personal force bubble for trapping enemies or protecting friends. Plus, Greater Invisibility lets her disappear from sight, turning her into the ultimate sneaky support. At 8th level, she boosts her wisdom by 2, bringing that stat up to an 18, because seeing everything coming is kind of her thing. She also gets Blink, giving her a chance to teleport in and out of the ethereal plane, making her really hard to pin down. Gravity Sinkhole rounds out the level, pulling enemies down like a boss and screwing with their footing. Level 9 sees Sue throwing down Wall of Force and Wall of Light, creating impenetrable barriers that control the battlefield and light up the place like a spotlight on villainy. At 10th level, Sue's improved Abjuration means she adds her proficiency bonus when trying to block spells like Counterspell or Dispel Magic, turning into a walking note button. And of course she's got True Strike, the best cantrip in the game. Don't at me. Or do, I guess. I mean, engagement is fun. Bigby's Hand and Mordenkainen's Private Sanctum fill out her arsenal, giving her ultimate control and protection options.
They're not powers. They're aggressively abnormal physical conditions that we're going to fix. Can you turn that off?
Level 11 and Sue turns the dial way up with Globe of Invulnerability, putting a nearly impenetrable bubble around her and her allies that blocks lower level spells like they're annoying flies. Fizban's Platinum Shield is her next big trick, a radiant shield that protects and blinds foes. Because why just defend when you can also throw some shade? At 12th level, she maxes out her wisdom with a +2 bump to 20. Yeah, she's basically a walking 6th sense now. True Seeing joins the roster so she can finally see through illusions, invisibility, and all that sneaky nonsense. Gravity Fissure lets her literally rip the battlefield apart by creating crushing gravity zones that punish anyone dumb enough to stand there. At 13th level, she locks down enemies with Force Cage, trapping targets like a boss, and Prismatic Spray, a chaotic burst of multicolored magic that can mess with anything it touches. At 14th level, Spell Resistance kicks in, giving Sue advantage on saving throws against spells and resistance to spell damage. Basically, magical attacks just bounce off her like a bad pickup line. Well, Johnny should know a thing or two about those. She also adds Reverse Gravity to her toolkit, flipping the battlefield upside down, and Symbol, which plants deadly magical traps for any uninvited guests. Level 15 is the peak of anti-magic power with Anti-Magic Field, nullifying spells in a wide radius. Plus, Sue creates her own personal helper, the homunculus Herbie, because even Invisible Woman needs a sidekick. At level 16, we grab a sweet +2 to intelligence, bumping it up to 18, because if Reed's gonna leave breadcrumbs of multiversal nonsense on the floor, Sue's smart enough to sweep them up. She also grabs Magic Missile, because sometimes you just want to auto-hit something, and Gift of Alacrity to boost initiative, because, let's be real, Sue's always the first to notice when things go sideways. At level 17, she adds Prismatic Wall to her arsenal, dropping a literal rainbow wall of death that can block, blind, burn, and banish anything dumb enough to touch it. Invulnerability joins the list too, letting Sue flex with literal immunity to all damage for a full 10 rounds, which is pretty on brand for the most stable member of the Fantastic Four. Level 18 unlocks Spell Mastery, giving Sue infinite use of shield and invisibility, because those are really just things she should always be able to do. She also picks up Foresight, more like Foresight. Get it? You get it? Completely original joke, never made it before. This grants her near precognition in battle, and skill empowerment to double up on her already ridiculous skill bonuses. At level 19, we bump dexterity by +2, hitting 14. So she's not only reading your mind, but dodging your attacks in the process. She also learns Hold Person and Hold Monster, freezing enemies mid-action like they're stuck in a bad Fantastic Four movie. Finally, at level 20, Sue gains signature spells, letting her cast Pulse Wave and Counterspell for free every day, because Battlefield Control is her middle name. She rounds out her arsenal with Dispel Magic to clean up magical messes, and Major Image for advanced illusions, letting her manipulate the battlefield and enemy perceptions effortlessly.
Family. It's about connecting to something bigger than yourself. We'll face it together. As a family.
When it comes to builds, there's a reason they call her the Invisible Woman. Sue Storm dominates the battlefield without ever needing to be seen. Let's take a look at why she's the force you never see coming. Speaking of force, she's a force damage machine. Sue's kit is a buffet of force damage. Pulse Wave, Gravity Sinkhole, Big B's Hand, Force Cage, Globe of Invulnerability, and Magic Missile spam for days. While everybody else is worrying about fire resistance, Sue's dropping damage that barely anything resists, chunking down even the beefiest bosses while ignoring their usual defenses. And she's got some defenses of her own. Arcane Ward soaks hits before they even scratch her, and with Shield and Counterspell both unlocked thanks to Spell Mastery, Sue has literal at-will defense. Someone casts a spell, countered. Someone tries to hit her, shielded. Her 20 wisdom and advantage on saves against spells makes it even harder to land anything on her, turning her into a brick wall made of force fields. She's not Loki, but she's a master of illusions. Sue can vanish wherever she wants with greater invisibility, create major images to confuse and distract enemies, and Mordenkainen's private sanctum to lock down areas when stealth or control is needed. She can manipulate sightlines and perception, ensuring her enemies waste actions on phantoms while she and the team take control. And she's the supportive backbone of the Fantastic Four, with Gift of Alacrity boosting initiative, Foresight giving future sight, skill empowerment enhancing allies, and spells like Hold Person and Hold Monster locking down threats. Sue isn't just protecting herself, she's making the entire party better. If Reed's the brain, Johnny's the flash, and Ben's the strength, Sue's the reason the Fantastic Four actually survived to see the next day. Turns out, even if you're invisible, doesn't mean you're untouchable. Let's take a look at where Sue Storm's force fields start to crack. She's got dumb physical stats. Sue's got the mental and emotional strength to keep the team together, but with an 8 in strength and a 10 in constitution, she's not exactly ready to brawl with the thing. She's a glass cannon, well, an invisible cannon, who'd prefer to keep her enemies at a distance rather than take a punch. And speaking of taking a punch, she actually has a way worse weakness. Look, it's rough out here for level 20 wizards with 80-something hit points. Yeah, Sue can tank spells, dodge AoEs, and outmaneuver most enemies. But if someone whispers power word kill in her direction, that's it. Force fields can't save you from a word, I guess. And can we please talk about her dating history? Look, we can't forget the Namor situation. The fish man? The guy who walks into your living room, dripping salt water onto your carpet, wearing nothing but green, scaly underwear, and the world's worst arrogance. And Sue just swoons. She has Reed any size you need Richards. She has a 20 in wisdom, speaks every language, and can bend light itself, but apparently can't resist wet Aquaman with anger issues. Look, I get it. We all have our blind spots, sure. Sue, you literally have true seeing. You have to do better. And that's a wrap on Sue Storm, Marvel's favorite big sister, force field bouncer, and Namor's questionable crush. If you enjoyed watching us barely keep this build visible while turning a comic book icon into a fully playable D&D character, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. because that might be the only barrier strong enough to keep Johnny from crashing the party. While you're down there, let us know what you think in the comments. Did we get Sue right? What would you tweak? Or who should we tackle next? And if all this talk about invisibility and True Strike make your eyes glaze over, don't worry. You can find this build and all our other character sheets on Patreon completely free, so you can grab them without going invisible in your own session. That's all from us. So until next time, we'll catch you on the flip side.
Guys, I got it. Ready?
Yeah.